Alright guys, welcome back to Frugal Homestead. So today we're going to be doing a 5-year review on the 22-ton Husky log splitter. Now, we are not nice to some of our tools here. They get worked, it's a homestead, it's a property, so it's got to be putting out just as much as it can, but yet we can't always put things covered up. I do try and cover the motor on this thing, but what you're about to see is a tool that had to sit outside in all weather conditions here in Ohio for 5 years. Now, as you can see, I still have a lot of wood to split this year, but I thought after all these years and all these videos I've made working this poor thing, we should talk about it. So we'll get into the pros, the cons, the pricing, the accessories, and what you need to watch out for if you own one of these things. So one of the first things we need to talk about is this Briggs Stratton 6.75 190cc horse motor. It's a bottom drive, and it's got a nice size pump under there. While it is slow, it honestly is a solid pump and has been running strong and has given me absolutely no problems the entire time. Now, while this thing runs strong, there's a certain basic maintenance you have to keep up on. It does start somewhat slow in the dead of winter, but we're talking about freezing temperatures here, so that's pretty much all motors. Now, I did have my buddy this year, Billy, come down, and he kind of cleaned it up, put a new primer bulb in it, put an air filter in it, just kind of cleaned it up, got it back to running. He didn't have to really tear much apart, but it's one of the motors that is just bulletproof. I've had zero real issue. Now, I have fought with it in cold temperatures just to get it to start, but generally a little bit of starting fluid if it really is kind of have an attitude, and she'll fire right up. Now, as we assess all the hoses and stuff, I had some concerns when buying this with this hose, but it actually has turned out to be one of the strongest. So if you're like me and you first look at this and you're like, this is not a black heavy duty hose, these are actually very strong. Now, when you're buying these, they come from various places. I've got ours here from Tractor Supply, and you need to check your connections because somewhat these are assembled at Tractor Supply because they come in on a pallet, and you got to make sure all these clamps are snugged down before you actually use it, and all the connectors are snugged down. Now, mine didn't have any issues right off the bat other than this one here, and I just tightened it up and it was fine. But coming out straight from the store, it's a good idea to go around and tighten up and just snug things down. Someone wanted to get in the video. Hello, Mr. Tick. You can't hang out with me in this video. Alright guys, so with a nice 2-inch hitch here, and then safety change with click back connectors, you know, this is actually a really good system as far as for hauling, and it usually pulls pretty true and pretty straight. So I really have no complaints. It's got a solid lock in, and after 5 years of sitting out here rusting, it still works like the day we bought it. I mean, honestly, it still works just fine. And I mean, these safety chains are heavy duty and they're bolted all the way through for a good solid connection from end to end, and they're double bolted hitch, which a lot of them don't have that. Now, it's important to note that you can use it in the up and down fashion for your huge logs, and you can also grab it, and let's do this here on camera without slamming it. Put it down on that pin and then pin it in, and then you can use it in the sideways configuration for the smaller pieces that you can pick up and put on it. Now let's take a moment and talk about some of the things I do not like. The tires on these things are crap. I literally have had to put tubes in them already, and they're already falling off the rim and flat again. Alright, this thing doesn't get moved that much, so it's not like they're getting nails and stuff. It's just the rims themselves don't want to hold, the tires don't want to hold, they're real low quality. You kind of have to understand that because they're trying to make these as cheap as possible, but yet still have power and quality in them. So one of the things that I would tell anyone that's going to be pulling theirs around a lot except the fact that you may have to go buy solid rubber tires or a higher quality tire for it. It's just one of those things. Another thing I'm not too fond of is the gas cap. Now I've replaced mine, but literally like I've had 3 of these now. The tabs on the underneath break off that lock down inside underneath, so then it just vibrates off and gas vibrates out of it. But on the same note of gas, and I've found this to be true with a lot of these 6.75 190cc Briggs Stratton motors, if you put gas in them, when you come back, it's probably not going to have gas in it. Now you'd think, that sucks, I'm just losing gas and gas is expensive. Yes, but that's why this thing starts up the next summer every year and I've never had to actually pull the carb apart and tear it apart, is because there's no gas in the system now. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but in the old days you had to take and drain all the gas before they had stable and stuff. You drained all the gas, that way you wouldn't have bad gas in your motor when you try and start it the next year. So it actually works out as a benefit, even though it is costly. So I try to run this thing until it's pretty much out of gas every time. Now I'm not sure if it's because this pin's in here or what's going on, but this tube here is a channel. And it's actually not as strong as I would like it to be. But if you look, it's already rippled the metal here, which has actually twisted the hitch just a shade. I'll try and go down here and kind of shoot down so you guys can see it. It is on an angle, so bear with me here. So when you look down that, you can see it's slightly twisted. I still can pull it without issue, but it's not right. I'll probably weld a blocker or something in there later to reinforce it. The next thing I want to talk about is something that I accept has happened, and I don't really have an issue with it because of how hard we work this poor thing. But the cylinder has started to leak. Now, you guys got to understand something. Cylinders do start to leak. This one's leaking because we work the dog crap out of it. This thing has done on average probably about 25 cords a year since we bought it 5 years ago. And I'm talking big wood. I mean hardwood, and for a period of time we're using a multi-directional splitter, which I will talk about here more towards the end of the video. But it is starting to leak. Now mind you, I have not put anything in it to swell the seals, because I actually haven't had to add that much fluid to this. But they actually make an additive that'll swell the seals a little bit. We use it on a lot of our dump equipment, and I can add that to this and slow down, if not stop, that leak. And it really only leaks bad when it's in the up and down position. So when it's on the flat position, you almost don't notice it. Some things to mention when you're running this: there's these ports here to help get this stuff out, but they're a little bit too small. You want to be keeping this clean in its upright position here, and then also here, so it doesn't build up too much, because while this is able to move, you don't want it stressing it, because that will wear on how your cylinder tracks down the actual body of it and will lead to early leakage as well. Alright, so now let's talk about accessories, because they have a whole slew of different accessories for these things, but some of the most useful ones that I've seen are, they sell a catch basket that locks onto the side, so when you put a piece of wood on it when it's in its sideways motion and one piece falls, instead of it falling to the ground, it gets caught on a catch. Now they also do a tabletop on the other side if you want it, but I can't see how that would be useful. But one we tried and had a little luck with, but it ended up being not so lucky, was this multi-directional splitter. And as you can see, there's some issues here. So basically what this does is it slides onto your actual splitter and locks in here. Then there's a cable on here that's supposed to go around your cylinder. Alright? And then when it goes in, it splits it 4 directionally. That's fine unless A, you're using real hard wood. I mean, if you're into like a really hard, like red oak, or I don't know, maybe even like a hickory, or an elm, it doesn't like it. 22 tons is not the right size for this. Now if you have wood that's not straight grain, like elm likes to be all, you know, this will get stuck. And when it gets stuck and you pull it back, the wood hits the stoppers and bends this up. All right, so I would say the bigger models of this, especially like the 30 or 35 one, this would be excellent for. But it's just a bit too much for this 22 ton, and we really don't use it because it's not that much more effective. And lately we've been getting a lot of free wood that has been large diameter, so this is useless on the down. It doesn't work. So generally we don't even use this anymore. It just sits in the garage. I haven't even bothered to put it in the vise and straighten it out. That's how little we use it. But it is an availability thing. So it is an option. It does work. And if you're a person that has a ton of like poplar or like softer straight grains, then, or beech or birch or anything like that, and they're like pretty straight grain, there's not a lot of like V's and stuff in them, or cross grain, man, or pin oak, you know, you could take that and speed up your wood splitting real fast on this 22 ton. But I suggest you have a bigger one if you're actually going to run that on a consistent basis. So let's talk price point, guys, because that's always a big concern. Now remember, this was 5 years ago. All right, they had one of their $200 days, and I actually had to drive to Lancaster for us, which is about, I don't know, 35 minutes away to get this thing. And the $200 off basically out the door cost us $1,099 for this thing. That's out the door. That's what we paid, cash money. 5 years later, it still runs. It's needed minimal maintenance. Some things, you know, may be a bigger problem for some people than others, like that bent hitch. If you're trying to pull it everywhere all the time from job site to job site, that might be an issue. If you need to be able to pull it around a lot, these tires may be an issue. You know what I mean? But for a normal homesteader on a normal farm or a normal piece of property that doesn't want to move the thing constantly, or could even garage it, because that might affect how the tires, you know, hold air in cold weather and such, you're definitely going to have a better experience if you cover it up and take care of it. But for us, I pretty much just cover the motor. But at $1,000, I saved that in the first 2 years of firewood we split up, in literally heating bills. Probably less, but I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. Now, that said, the quality of these ones is going to be better than probably the ones that you're going and buying now, and you need to understand that. When you go to Tractor Supply now, they've made some changes to them that I think are a little bit more on the chintzy side, but not terrible. I do believe that if you can find one of these used models, you're going to be a lot happier with these heavier models and how they're set up. Now, I do want to say that the Husky line of splitters, because I've actually used pretty much every size. I've got a lot of friends that have them. I got a lot of businesses I work with that have them. I have some high-end tourist places around here that have them to split up their firewood for their visitors to use. And all of them work phenomenally. They all start continuously. Most of them never get covered up or put away. And they just run. And in today's atmosphere, that's exactly what you want. You want a tool that just works. Nothing's going to be perfect. We all know that. Those days are long gone. But for what it is and for the price of it, I really don't think that you can ask for anything more in the current environment and the way things are made in this throwaway world. Now, I do want to say that it's not the fastest in the world. And the bigger one you get, a little bit faster, but it really doesn't change the speed between, say, you know, the 30s and the 20s. So don't think that because you're buying a bigger one it's going to be faster, because it's not. The 22 ton has served us quite well in some of the harshest woods you can think. I even have split ironwood with it. And I mean, if you've ever tried to do that, you know how hard that is. It's a solid option, and I think that anybody who gets one or is thinking about buying one will be very happy with your purchase. So that said, if you haven't already, go down and hit that subscription button, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but you should go down and hit the notification bell so you see all of our upcoming videos, and we will see you in the next one. And I'm gonna go pick some ticks off me because it's that time of year.